Hi everyone, welcome along to the Undercut V8 Sleuth look at the world of supercars with the angles that you don't and won't get anywhere else. And the analysis of the numbers to back them all up. Now, our pilot show was a hit, so we're back for more reps in the business end of the season, and I'm thrilled to welcome Shell OTR on board as our presenting partner of the Undercut. They will also bring you V8 Sleuth's coverage of the AirTouch 500 at the Bend at Shell V-Power Motorsport Park, which is great as Shell and OTR come together to deliver premium fuel and convenience to Australians nationwide. Check online now for all of those details. City Rural Insurance Brokers are back with us too, as well as our supporting partner for this show. A big thanks to Andrew Bender and his team for staying on board with us. Now, on the show this time around, Toyota's big unveil. We look ahead to the Bend and chew over the combinations that will tackle the Enduros. Heartbreak for one of our own in the US. Lucky dogs, finals formats, and much, much more. On the panel again this week, two gents who are, well, very busy at this time of year in their day job and their race driver jobs. Jack Perkins, welcome to you and welcome back from the States.
Thank you, Noonan. It's good to be back.
It is great. We've got a bit to talk to you about. James Moffat, welcome to you. Builder extraordinaire, I believe,
settled down
in the headlines in recent weeks.
But good to be back, Noons. Thank you.
It is a good time of year. We are on the run now to the endurance races, the Ryco Enduro Cup. Repco Sprint Cup's done and dusted. We're about to get into the really serious stuff. Is this the point of the year where you boys are walking a little taller because you're race drivers with really serious stuff on the line with the two big races to come?
Well, when the footy finals are on, Noons, that means Bathurst is just around the corner, mate. So, yeah, for us, it's obviously the business end as a co-driver. You know, the championship sort of set its course in terms of who's good and who's not, but anything can happen throughout the two endurance races, and as a co-driver, it's great to, you know, get thrust into the action and be part of it.
Well, James, you boys don't have to worry about footy finals with the way your teams have gone this year in the AFL. So it's all about the supercars and the enduros that are ahead. We've got a lot to go through on the show. So to get the ball rolling, here are the burning questions. Lots happening in the world of supercars at this time of year. Ryco Enduro Cup is on the horizon. Big news, boys. Last 7 days, we have taken the covers off the Toyota Supra A90 that's going to join the championship next year. I couldn't help but feel a little Batmobile in the way this car looked with the nose and it was black. But Supra, do we love it or do we loathe it? What do we think of the first impressions of this new car?
Well, for me, it was kind of what I expected, to be honest. It looks like a Toyota Supra, which I think is a big tick. But it's exciting that it's finally, I guess, made public. It's been 12 months in the making almost since it was unveiled at Bathurst last year that, you know, Toyota was going to be joining the championship. So clearly a lot of work has gone in behind the scenes from all involved to get the car to this point. So it's always a great moment when they're launched to the public for the first time. And I think also very nice that Neil Crompton got to complete the first laps in the car because he's been instrumental, I understand, in bringing the program together.
Yeah, did a little run at Altona at Toyota's facility. That car's been running at Winton again this week. They've done a 2-day engine test. Neil couldn't help himself. I think he's had a few more laps pounding around up there. Warren Luff, Macaulay Jones and Fabian Coulthard, of course, BJR and WAU are the Toyota teams for next year. But that car is going to form one of the cars that they race in next year. They have another car coming, but that car is the one that's going to head to America for the testing at Winshire alongside the Ford and the Chevy. So they're going on the boat, so they lose that car, and indeed the three homologation teams lose a car for a few months before they get there, do the testing and bring them back.
Yeah, it's obviously going to be a busy period, and as you can see here, it's a funky-looking race car. I'm not sure if I actually love it. I love Toyota being in the series, but yeah, hats off to everyone at Walkinshaw Andretti United for getting it on track, and it's certainly not an easy undertaking. And all that wind tunnel testing and things coming up, all the engine testing they're doing, it's got a rigorous program before it's racing in supercars in 2026. So I really wish the program all the best because it really is awesome to have Toyota on the grid. One
of the big questions that we had leading into the launch earlier in the week in Sydney was, what's the engine? So it's 5.2 litre engine, Chev's 5, Ford's 5.7. So there's going to be a lot of work going into making sure that these things, I mean, we talk about parity so much, but it's so hard. I don't think you can ever make these three cars exactly the same in every area. They're going to do the absolute best that they can with the effort and the technology and the spend that they're going to take them overseas. But at the core of it all, to have the #1 motor manufacturer in the country finally, after 25 odd years and a few looks at it to come to play. Whether you like it or loathe it, the fact is that the Toyota's in, and that's a great thing for the game.
Absolutely. It's a huge deal for the sport and the industry. So a really big coup to have a manufacturer of Toyota's presence in this country, but also globally involved in supercars.
So the next question springs to my mind. Does Toyota win a race or races in its first year in 2026? You'd have to say that they have to, in terms of the well-being of the fans and making sure that this thing doesn't go the way of some of these previous manufacturers, because really, yes, Erebus won a few races. Yes, McLaughlin and Volvo won races. Nissan did win, but not very much. They have to be competitive straight out. They have to do whatever's required to make sure that this is a success, not just for Toyota and for the teams, but for the sport in general. I mean, do they win? Do they actually win next year?
Yes. I think they do, Noons. I think, like you've touched on, having the world's biggest car company come to supercars is such a massive thing, and they've been able to learn off the previous manufacturers that have came in, aside from General Motors and Ford. So as you've touched on, Volvo, Nissan, Erebus with the Mercedes. So everyone's learned from where those teams may or may not have gone right and wrong, and I think Toyota have to win, and I think they'll win straight away, which is what needs to happen. All three manufacturers need to have the ability to go racing every weekend with a chance of winning the races, and I think that's going to happen.
Which round, which track, which driver is a whole other question. The expectation is that Chaz Moffat and Ryan Wood will do laps in the Toyota once their season and their commitments. Obviously, they're a Ford team at the moment, WAU, so that needs to be met with. We're off to the Bend. 500 Ks is ahead, the new home of the pre-Bathurst Enduro. The question on everyone's minds, will the Bend be a snooze fest? You two are going to be among it. What's your feeling?
Well, I think the track layout, unfortunately, and 500 kilometres of racing, it lends itself to the reality that it could be a processional race. But for me, this time of the year, that part of the country, the weather for me is a big factor. Changeable conditions would not be unusual throughout the race, and that would definitely spice up the action. But just the way the cars are, with the evenness of the cars, difficult to follow, that really probably hasn't been improved that much in the Gen 3 cars. And probably the combination of the soft tyre as well, with very little degradation. Tailem Bend is not typically a track that we see much tyre degradation anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if it is processional. I hope it's not, for the fans' point of view, and we always like the strategy of long distance racing. But one thing that could really spice it up is full course yellow, if that system remains in place.
And as we record this episode of the show, we still haven't got word exactly on how that's going to play out. But the one thing that we do know is that we're bringing a pile of co-drivers into the mix here, Jack, and experienced guys like yourselves, but there are, I think it's something to the tune of 12 co-drivers with experience of 10 rounds or less in Supercars Championship racing. So as much as it might be a snooze fest in some of the elements that we know will happen, when you add double the drivers, some that are new combinations, that gives us a little bit of jeopardy at least. I'm not holding out completely for a snooze fest here. I think there's, even without weather, I think there's still the chance here, such as the difference between co-drivers, the difference between experience levels, and the fact that we don't put them on the track at the same time by making the main game driver start the race, that at least will mix it up a little.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many elements that make races exciting or not exciting. I think the first thing is hats off to Supercars for changing the rule and allowing co-drivers to start. I think that was a terrible decision in the first place to mandate the batting order in cricket, if you like. So that's a tick for me in terms of making the race a bit more interesting and opening up some strategy variation. But you can't shy away from the fact that motorsport's sort of almost fundamentally flawed. We qualify with the fastest car at the front and the slower cars are behind. How does a slower car pass a faster car? So it doesn't necessarily matter what track we go to. It's always going to be a challenging proposition, no matter who's driving it, for a slower car to get past a faster car. But I do agree with Moff. I think if it's a sunny day, that it's going to be potentially a bit lacklustre in terms of entertainment. I hope I'm wrong. even if it rains on Saturday and the grass is wet, I think that could open up a variable because...
There's a lot of grass.
Correct. You know, if you run off on the grass on slick tyres, you may not get back on. But for it to be a really entertaining race, I think wet tyres will need to be involved at some stage to really mix it up. And I hope I'm wrong. And that's not a discredit to the Bend facility. It's just the way that the cars race around circuits that are longer flowing corners.
And there have been other changes to try to get away from the sameness. So co-driver minimums have increased in how much you have to do of the race before you can be done for the day. So they have tweaked and tuned a few things to create some variation across things. So we'll see how that all plays out. Of course, we've got 2 enduros and then we have 3 rounds of finals. But just thinking about it, do we have our first finals tweak before we even reach the finals? Because I've got a theory here, lads. We're going to determine the 10 that are in the finals after Bathurst. But you guys know fully well that on Sunday night, after the Repco Bathurst 1000, who are the 2 drivers that anyone cares about? The 2 drivers that win the Peter Broc Trophy. The guy that's maybe scraped in the 10th or been pushed out of 10th, no one's talking about them. So I would say that do we have to look at determining the finals 10 after the Bend 500 or perhaps the last round of Sprint Cup, chop it there, be done, and then move on. So as if we're going to have something to celebrate, it's at a time when someone will actually celebrate it.
Yeah, well, I think the answer to all of those questions is, Noons, we need more racing, because more racing then gives us more opportunities to mix and match. I think the Endurance Cup needs to be more than 2 races. It's happened in the past with the Gold Coast 600.
You sound like a co-driver who wants another gig here, Jackson.
No, I'd happily take another gig, Noons, but I think we need more racing because then we get more races in the finals, we get more racing period, and so then there's no losers with more racing.
There should be more enduros as enduros or more races in the finals? Or should there be an enduro that's part of the finals?
Well, all of the above. My first statement is there should be more racing across the board. Then you've got more events on the calendar, gives you an opportunity to put in more endurance races in the Endurance Cup. It gives you a chance to put more endurance races and sprint races in the final series because there's more events. Obviously, the Bathurst 1000 is a great cut-off in the championship to then go back to single driver racing, should that be after Bathurst. But then we need probably more races in this final series on the run home. 3 races is probably not enough.
Well, it's not 3 races, remember. It's 3 rounds, and we've added, so we're going to have 2 races on the Gold Coast, 3 races at Sandown, and 3 races now in Adelaide with a Friday race. I think there's 50 grand bonus up to win that Adelaide race now. So cash is always handy too. So I think there's also that misunderstanding of the way that the formula is going to work. A lot of people think Broc Feeney's bought himself a ticket all the way through now to Adelaide. That's not the case.
No, you're right, Noons. But I think probably as the year has unfolded and we've tried to understand how the system works better, it's still very confusing. So admittedly, it obviously is the concept year, if you like, the first year that we've had this final system in place. So we're working it out as we go, but I think fundamentally it has been very confusing. People don't exactly know what's going on.
A lot of elements and a lot of spreadsheets that are required to figure it all out.
And the thing for me that sort of didn't get really lost, but Broc's done a fantastic job so far this year, has won the Sprint Cup. Ironically, it's a steering wheel he's holding, not a cup.
It doesn't look like a cup, it's a wheel.
But the fact that Will Brown and Matt Payne are locked in on points the same as Broc, I think that needs a bit of looking into as well, because
takes a bit of the shine away.
It does, absolutely. So, especially given how dominant Broc has been up until this point of the championship.
So let's have a look at the enduros. Will stability in these races prevail? Is there a roughie who could be a chance here, or do you have to be in the big teams with the settled co-driver lineups to be able to succeed in these next 2 races?
Well, I think stability always is an important factor when you go into long distance racing. But for me, the biggest thing that will, I guess, spice things up and have a roughie as a chance is, I touched on it before, is this full course yellow. If that system remains in place and
or a version of it.
Yes, exactly. So that's where we could see a roughie, swing from the ropes, if you like, and throw a Hail Mary, which we've seen already a couple of times in the shorter races this year. So that's the big wild card for me in terms of the end result of these long distance races.
So these are the combos that are staying together from last year. And the thing that sticks out to me, apart from the bloke in the bottom left corner there, is that the Red Bull Ampol team have not changed a thing. The only thing that's different from last year is that Will Brown and Scott Pye are in car 1 and not car 87. They, of course, are the defending 500 winners from Sandown last year. But, of course, Brodie Kostecki and Todd Hazelwood, big team and car move. Macca Jones and Jordan Boyce are together again. Matt Payne and Garth Tander are together. James and Jack are together. Andre Heimgartner and Declan Fraser and James Golding and David Russell, who, let's not forget, finished on the podium at the 500 last year at Sandown for Premier. So they are the combos that remain from last year. So what is it, about a third of the field or just under that are going to be in with what they know. I mean, you're in the same team, yes, but you've swapped drivers. So there's a whole pile of chopping and changing that goes on. So it tends to be the big teams that get the jobs done when it matters most in the big races. But one of the things that has changed for the Enduros, and I'm a fan of this, well, for the Bend at least, is that the lucky dog be gone. The dog is gone. There's no, here, have the free kick and get the roll around here. Big tick from me. I've never liked it. I don't want it, and I'd like to see it bone from Bathurst as well.
Well, I don't think it really, whilst it was in place, I don't think it ever really added anything to the races.
It just tried to keep more cars in the race who are genuinely not a chance of winning the race.
Yep. So, you know, I can't see any cons to this decision to have it removed.
Jack, are you going to defend it?
I will defend it because you look at Bathurst in 2022 when half the field got taken out in the first corner. We went down 2 laps, managed to get 2 laps back and finished 10th. So I think I actually don't have a problem with it, but I hope it doesn't affect me. I hope we're not a lap down and that it doesn't have a difference to our race. But, you know, I am a fan of it, especially in how they use it in NASCAR. But looks like I'm outvoted on the panel here, boys.
2-1, 2-1, numbers rule. Next question is on our burning questions. Will Broc Feeney's role continue? He's having the sort of championship season that's up there with the greats in their best seasons, whether it's Mark Scaife or Scott McLaughlin or Jamie Whincup or Van Gisbergen. His numbers are epic. The pole positions, the race wins, the podiums, the sprint cup. Clearly, he and Jamie Whincup have to start as the favourites here without anyone that you could probably mount an argument to put on the same line as them.
I think, without a doubt, they're favourites to start with, Noons. They've got the fastest car at the moment, Broc, and has been driving phenomenally well. And momentum in sport is a huge thing. So it's going to be very hard to stop that combination at both the Bend and Bathurst. And Broc is clearly on top of his game at the moment. He is just executing every small little detail as well as he can. You know, probably the only glitch we've seen in the last few races is that slight roll at the start at Queensland Raceway, which gifted his teammate a victory. Otherwise, you know, Broc would have, you know, clean swept the races at Queensland Raceway. So, yeah, for the rest of the field, including his teammate Will Brown, you know, I think we're still trying to catch the number 88.
There's an interesting element to all this. Of course, Jamie Whincup, the co-owner of 888, steps back in to drive with Broc. This year, from my memory, is the least amount of racing that Jamie's done in his career since he stepped out of driving full-time, and that was at the end of 2021. And there was a comment he made around the Queensland Test period that he was a bit rusty. I'm sure that will go because the best teams get the best job done in the way, and that resume that he's got. But can't help but feel it's, even for Jamie Whincup, when you don't drive a race car during the year and you're running a team and you're doing all that stuff, it's got to get so much harder every year. And maybe it gets to a point one day where he goes, to do my job well, that I do for 362 days of the year otherwise, I maybe need to stop doing this at some point. But if the form doesn't drop away, then it's pretty hard to have that discussion with yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the other part of that is the fact that the Bend being the first time for a 500k race, you know, I know myself and a lot of the other co-drivers, there's a lot of muscle memory from Sandown kicking around. So, you know, going to a different circuit, if you like. I know like Garth Tander's been there in a Porsche doing testing, getting familiar with the circuit. It's not a muscle memory track by comparison to the other places we race. But, you know, I still don't think that changes, like you've touched on, the fact that that 88 car is going to start as favourite. And further to the question about stability, the top 3 pairings in the championship at the moment are unchanged from last year. So for me, if I had to guess the podium for Bathurst, it's hard to look past those top 3 in the championship based on all the things that you've discussed.
Now, next question. Is 2027 too early for Gen 3 cars to be introduced to the Dunlop Super 2 Series? There's a few different schools of thought here that they need to come in sooner to be more relevant to the main game for the young drivers coming through. Then there's the other argument that says no, later, 2028, because there's been a big investment by a range of teams in the hardware that's currently been racing. I've got to say, I'm on the side of the latter. I don't have a car in the game here. I don't own one. It's not a scenario that's going to affect me. But I kind of think that if those teams have invested to support that category, that investment has to be respected.
This, for me, is a really tricky one. But it comes down to, I just can't see how these Super 2 teams will be able to afford these Gen 3 cars.
Because nothing crosses over.
No, exactly right. And you just touched on it a little bit there. There's been investment in the Super 2 Series with teams building brand new cars recently. Tickford built a couple, I think. Walkinshaw's built one, 888. So these teams have invested back into sort of that specification of car for Super 2. But for me, I think even 2027 could be too early. Sure, there is a huge difference in the cars now, but Supercars sort of made their bed when they decided on the specification for Gen 3. So, yeah, it's a tricky one for me. I'd be really sort of interested to understand what the Super 2 teams feel about this. And
I think on the whole, they want it to be further down the line, 2028. I mean, there were some main game teams pushing because don't forget they've got Gen 3 inventory that they need to move and flush through, because that's what the series is all about. It is about developing drivers, but it's also a place for the equipment to live on. But I would worry that if they were to try to bring it in any earlier, it could be the death of the teams that have supported this series, like the Eggleston Motorsports, the Image Racings with Terry Wyhoon. Some of these teams have been there for literally decades, and this might be the thing that just wipes them out, and it becomes purely a championship by main game teams with their old cars.
Yeah, and look, I think Moff hit the nail on the head. It's the cost, and unfortunately, Gen 3 was, the brief was to make the cars cheaper, and it's probably not worked out that way. But you look at someone like an Eggleston Motorsport or an Image Racing, it's not just buying a car. The wheels don't cross over, so you got to go and buy.
Not even the wheel nuts.
No, and the rattle guns then don't work, and then none of the bodywork carries over. Like, it's the redundancy of all that. It becomes such a huge investment. So I think they've sort of made the script here that they're going to have to stick with the current cars for a bit longer to make the business case stack up, or unfortunately it'll come at the detriment of a small Super 2 grid effectively, because these cars are just so expensive that it doesn't make a business case, unfortunately.
Next question: should wildcards be allowed during the Supercars finals? And the thing that's prompted this question is we've heard the news that's been confirmed now that Austin Cindric, the NASCAR driver, is going to make a start as a wildcard at the Adelaide Grand Final at the end of the year in a Ford Racing Tickford Mustang. Do we like the feeling of a wildcard being in the mix of the finals? I mean, I'm sure that Broc Feeney, Matt Payne, Will Brown aren't going to be on the track very often with Austin, given it's a big challenge for him to take this on. But I don't know. There could be ramifications here we haven't even thought of.
Yeah, to me it's not something I've really given too much thought, but I don't think it's a problem. Austin's a professional driver, races in NASCAR 36 times a year, knows what he's doing, and I'm sure he will have every idea of what is unfolding in terms of the finals, if you like. He's not unfamiliar to that sort of process, being in NASCAR with their playoff system himself. So, yeah, I don't think he'll be a factor in the races, respectfully, for him to be in the way of the title contenders. So, for me, it's not really an issue. And I think the fact we want these if you want to generate wildcard drivers, well, it's got to be at a big event like an Adelaide.
And it's going to have to be at that part of the calendar, because drivers with world programs, NASCAR races a lot, you've got to wait for them to be free. And a NASCAR driver doesn't have a free weekend for the bulk of the year.
Oh, I agree. I think wildcards are a really good thing for the sport of supercars. Everyone loves, Lowndesy coming out and doing the enduros. And I guess it's no different if a wild card was to change the result of Bathurst, and it could happen at Bathurst, it could happen at the finals. I personally don't have a problem with it. I think wild cards are great, so more the merrier.
Interesting to see how the American goes on the streets of Adelaide, and plenty of discussion and angles as always in the burning questions. There's always a bit to think about. It's time though now for some one-way traffic. The one-way traffic is where we throw the questions at our panellists, and I think, James, we have to start throwing them at our friend Jack here, who, my little heart broke for you on Sunday in Portland, mate. That was a stunning performance that you put in the Xfinity Series. So many things to ask you about all of this, but what happened is the simple question that I want to know. Yeah,
it's a good question. I haven't quite got over it yet, Noons, but got ourselves into third place, and yeah, coming through the sort of faster section on the track where you had to really drive it like it was wet because of all the dirt that was coming on the track all day. You roll that section in third gear, and then just as I went down to second gear, didn't feel like it all sort of happened properly, and didn't get the deceleration, ran off the track, and turns out then it was then stuck in third gear. I couldn't get the car moving, and yeah, the rest is history. So ultimately, you know, obviously disappointed that I feel like, you know, I did a little mistake, and then the car was stuck in third, but you know, the mechanicals of the gearbox were fine. It's obviously just in the shifter lever and the way the mechanism works, but it would have been a lot easier to sit here and say how good was that weekend, we finished second or we finished third, but instead it's what could have been. But I'm sure once I do get over it, I'll be able to be proud of what we'd got to do to that point. But it's obviously, you know, the amount of effort that went into it all to get sort of so close to getting a mighty fine result went begging. So ultimately I'm disappointed, but yeah, at some stage I'll look back on it and be very proud of what we were able to do. What's it done for you over there? Obviously when we did this show last, you hadn't made any of those trips to America, but you've done 3 since then. The Chicago opportunity popped up. There was the TA2 run in Portland to learn the track as well, and then the actual Xfinity round. But I can't help but the blokes in America now know who Jack Perkins is, that's for sure. Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to think there's going to be another opportunity there, Noons, but, you know, none of this stuff comes easy. You've got to work really hard for it, and if that's the last NASCAR Xfinity Series race I do, then I can be proud of that. But, yeah, I'd love to do more, and if that opportunity can present in the future, I'll be the first one over there on a plane, you know, putting my hand up, doing whatever I can. But it was just a great experience. Obviously, the Chicago one happened in a week and a half's notice, and never even driven the car, seen the place, and we were 4th in practice, 5th in qualifying, which I was, you know, probably exceeded my expectations a little bit, and to get taken out of the race effectively on lap 6 or 7 was, you know, again, another disappointing ending. But to now have done 2 races and the TA2 race there as well, yeah, it was a really great opportunity, and I'm very thankful and grateful of it, and now you want a bit more. So, yeah, hopefully it's not my last race over there, and we can put some more stuff together in the coming years. It'd be awesome. I was going to say, given what we've talked about with the Super 2 cars not really connecting to the Gen 3 cars, could it be an opportunity and an option now to go and bolt together a program to run a couple of these road course races in NASCAR as your enduro prep in future years? And is that a bit easier, or something that's a little bit left field compared to just going and doing Super 2? Well, 100% Noons. And, you know, I've always, what I'm up to, 10 one-year co-driving deals, and I've always kind of reinvested my own time and my own money into making sure I'm prepared for the endurance races, which then arguably means you get invited back. So racing something throughout the year is a part of being ready for those endurance races. And when I looked at Super 2 this year, I wasn't able to get in what I thought was a competitive car. I looked at doing Trans Am and TA2, and the money that's now commanding is pretty high for what it is. And when I sat back and looked at what we could put together over in America, it was, you know, really quite achievable in some respects. I got a great group of people behind me that were helping put it all together. So yeah, I would love to do a couple of these races in preparation for the endurance races. I always said that my dream gig would be to live in Hawaii, race NASCAR road courses and come back and do Bathurst and Sandown, but I'm not quite ready for that financially, but it's sort of a stepping stone along the way. But yeah, any racing you do is good racing, and, you know, obviously Shane has helped open the doors, but, you know, I've been following it since Ambrose went over there way back in 2006 as well. So yeah, I think, you know, I hope that I've done enough to kind of introduce myself and create some more opportunities. Tell us about Joe Gibbs Racing. Obviously, it's a massive team. It's a massive facility. Everything's bigger in America. Give us a snapshot of that place, the culture, the people, how things operate. Yeah, I mean, to put it into perspective is really tricky, because I think the biggest race team I've ever been involved with in supercars in Australia was probably Dad's team when they were running 4 cars, and I think there was kind of 55 people maybe working there at once. Joe Gibbs Racing has over 500 staff, and so when you think 55 was quite big, I would imagine these days 888's probably the biggest. Maybe Tickford, they'd be getting up around that 60 or 70 staff. 500 staff, like you can't even remember everyone's names, let alone 500. So the sheer size of the place was massive. The fact that they're effectively the Toyota factory team obviously means that's why they've got a lot of staff. But the whole experience was great. I got to meet Coach Gibbs a few times, which was really cool. And he was, really rapt that the Xfinity program allows people like me to come over and do our thing. Obviously, the introduction to the team came through Australian crew chief James Small. So to spend some time with him and see how he applies his trade over there is really cool. But yeah, just to be part of the bigger wheel, if you like, to work in that organisation. It's it's like working with 888 here in Australia if you've got that opportunity. It's like working with Red Bull Formula One team in their height of their success. It was just a really eye-opening experience just to see their processes, how they go about it, even how they work on a commercial side, the technical side, and just be thrust right into it was a really cool thing, and absolute top-class race team, one of the world's best race teams, and can't sing the praises enough of that organisation.
What did you see over there that you thought, I like how they do that in NASCAR, we should do that here? And what was, on the other side of the fence, what were some things that you saw that you thought, actually, we're pretty good, we actually probably are better at that than them?
Yeah, it's a funny one because a lot of people have asked me that. And look, I think you've got 2 premier categories, whether it be supercars or NASCAR. You've got 2 really premier organisations where what we do here in Australia is world class, don't get me wrong, and what NASCAR do is also world class. If I was to put my kind of mechanics gloves on, because I once worked on race cars back in the day, the no pit walling and the quick speed of the pack up and the jumping on the private jet and everything like that was pretty cool.
I bet it was.
That to me, like, if you got to race 38 times a year,
that's how you got to do it.
Not having to go through an X-ray machine and check into a flight and sit on a delayed terminals and all that crap, I can tell you that is bang on. The truck pack up's done in about 20 minutes. They literally roll the toolbox in and the car, if it's on its wheels, because at Daytona, the 19 car wasn't quite on its wheels when Eric Almirola got him one of the big ones. But yeah, the pack-up happens in 20 minutes, half an hour. They're at the airport nearly an hour later, whereas in Australia, we've got pit walls to pack away. We've got, all the telemetry stuff, everything, tyres, wheels, spares, this and that, the catering tents. Our pack-up takes 2 or 3 hours. So from that point of view, there's certainly a bit to be done there. But I think in terms of car preparation and everything, the 2 are very similar. It's world class. On the commercial space, I think, the Australians do a very, very good job of looking after their sponsors and their sponsor groups. So, yeah, I think there's just little things. The one-day race format in the Xfinity Series, I think, was pretty cool. Supercars week, we're there Thursdays and Fridays, which we just don't need to be.
Too long, isn't it?
Too long, yep. We raced practice, qualifying and race on Saturday, and everyone was back home with their families on Sunday. So there's a bit to be learnt from that. But like I said, you don't need to flip one upside down and grab all the good things out of it. There's good things out of all of them that could be, just little changes to. We could help NASCAR and NASCAR could help supercars.
I'm just writing down on Jack's rider for future endurance races, private jets, for anyone who wants to sign him up for 2026. Let's turn it to you, Moff. We mentioned that you're still with Tickford, but you've swapped cars this year. You're going to drive with Thomas Randall.
Yes.
I was really interested to ask you, differences in ergonomics between Cam and Thomas. You're still driving a Tickford car, but have you had to change how you drive the Tickford car, how you sit in the car, how you operate things inside there, because you're essentially driving a different guy's car now?
Yeah, look, not so much how I drive the car, but ergonomically, yeah, a little bit of a difference compared to driving with Cam. I was sort of able just to get away with just a little bit of padding under my backside with Cam. But with Thomas, I actually do need like a proper insert. He's got a bit of a funky back going on, and from his probably open wheel days or beginnings, he likes to really sort of sit quite laid back in the car, which I find a bit unusual. So that's probably the biggest difference driving with Thomas compared to Cam over the last few years. But probably one of the benefits of the Gen 3 car is the adjustable pedals. So yeah, that makes it a little bit easier. So but aside from that, Thomas has been in the Tickford team for about as long as I have as a co-driver. So we've sort of, I feel like we've gelled pretty well together because I've really known Thomas before this year anyway. So I sort of know how he operates, and he's probably getting a bit more of a sense of how I operate now as well. So it was good to bank a few laps on the test day at Queensland Raceway a few weeks ago in preparation for the bend, and we'll go there and give it our best shot, and see how we fare.
We just saw that graphic there. You've put together a pretty good body of work at Bathurst over the last decade there. Plenty of visits to the podium, some with Cam, one with Taz Douglas back in the Nissan days of 2014. At the bend, it's different for you, though, because you're double dutying it, because there's a round of the Trico Trans Am Series on the same weekend as the Bend 500. So you're driving Mustangs, but they're, well, pretty different, aren't they?
Might be a Mustang body Trans Am, but that's about the only similarity between the two cars.
Is it going to help at all, or could it hinder you?
Look, I don't think it'll hinder me, but whether it helps, that remains to be seen. But that's something that I committed to that Trans Am program at the start of the year, and I feel obliged to see that commitment through. So we're not really in the championship hut this year. We've sort of had a bit of an up and down year results-wise in the Trans Am car. So it gives us the opportunity just to go to Tailem Bend and shoot for race wins. And obviously, still heavily focused on doing a good job with Thomas and Tickford in the 500 kilometre race on Sunday.
Now, you're trying to get him in the finals. He's 10th. He's right on the fringe here. There's always pressure on co-drivers every year, and I feel like the pressure keeps on rising every year, particularly if you're with a driver who's in the title fight. But now you're with a guy who's trying to get in the title fight to make sure he's in the fight when the title fight really kicks off. Does that change anything at all? I don't get the impression that it does, because you need to do the best job anyway, no matter what the outcome of the situation. But is that in the back of your brain at all, or his brain at all?
I don't know if it's in the back of his mind. It's not something I've really given much consideration, to be honest. Noons, the pressure is always there. That's just a fact of being a co-driver, and probably if you don't feel that pressure, then you're not probably doing it for the right reasons. So yeah, that doesn't really change anything in my world, at least. I'm still sort of focused on going out there and doing the best possible job that I can and contribute in a positive way to the team. And hopefully that ends in a solid result for us. But we know that there's a lot of other cars out there trying to do exactly the same thing. So we feel like our preparation has been pretty solid, but it's about executing on the 3 days across the weekend, practice, qualifying, and clearly the race on Sunday. So, for me, I've got a bit of juggling to do between the two different cars that I'm driving, but I feel like I've been around long enough and experienced enough that I should be able to handle that comfortably.
Well, James is doing plenty of juggling, not just at the bend, at the 500 with the Trans Am car and the Supercar. He juggles all sorts of stuff in his daily life. He's been hitting the headlines lately as our own James Moffat. We gave the big Sapporo plug a little while back, and look at this, you've been hitting the headlines lately. A Moffat-built home sold for a pretty handy number. I looked through the pictures here. Mate, you're putting together some very nice homes here. This is good stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Noons. We're happy with how that product turned out. So always good to get a nice quick sale, and we're still ahead, so that's good.
What you go to? What's your area of specialty on the job site? Are you the guy that's the guru of bathrooms, kitchens? They tell me that kitchens they sell houses. Is that the case?
Oh, I think it's everything that has to come together.
But that's the big thing.
Yeah, it really depends on the market that you're trying to target. But for me, when I first started, I was much more, I guess, involved on the tools, which I do enjoy. But now that sort of got multiple job sites running, it's more about managing the build process and making sure all the materials are on site at the right time and when they need to be there, and organising all your trades. So not as much on the tools as I would probably like, because I say to people, when I do have a bit of time to be on the tools, it means everything's sort of running quite smoothly and is under control. But yeah, it's all a big process. I've said to some other people that for me, the building industry is very similar to racing, and it's all about the team behind you and getting like-minded people to work together. to achieve a good result. So that's the way I'm sort of approaching it. Yeah, there's always different challenges each day, which, you know, sort of wake up in the morning, you never know what you're going to have to deal with. So sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes that's a bad thing. But like I said, we're still going and we're still ahead. So that's the main thing.
Oh, it's definitely the main thing. Definitely the main thing. It's time though now too for our City Rural Insurance Brokers Classic Car. And this week, we're looking at a unique car in Holden's Bathurst heritage. It's the HSV Sportswagon that started 3 Bathurst 12 hours and finished on the overall podium, in fact, in the race in 2010. We caught up with the car's current custodian, David Holk, at the recent Winton Festival of Speed. David, the Holden wagon from the 12 hour. Some people haven't seen this for a while. What's the story here? This is a cool car.
It is a cool car, one of one, that's for sure. And, you know, that's a car that Holden decided to build for the 12-hour races. Sort of 2007, they started doing that. 2008, ran at the first 12-hour and ran through to 2010 where it finished third outright.
We haven't seen this, I was about to say car, but it's a wagon, since those 12-hour production car days before the race went to the GT3 cars that it is now. This is a standout. Holden seemed to like doing different stuff for the 12-hour. We had the Ute, we had the diesel Astra, and the wagon as well. This car's got plenty of attention.
It has. It's been amazing how many people come up and say, wow, you know, I remember this car, or I haven't seen it, what's happened to it, where's it been? Yeah, people love it. It's just different.
How do you come across this car? Because it's been gone for ages. We've seen it occasionally at the Adelaide Motorsport Festival, but what's the story behind how you ended up with this car?
It was funny. I was working pretty hard one day. It was a hot day. Come home, had a shower, sat down, had a look at my 105, and I was a second viewer. And I thought, right, so I rang a friend, I said, check this out, and just had to get the car back. I knew the car, been involved before, and just jumped on it.
What's the features of this car that when you got it, when you could have a look over it, that you saw that you went, that's how they did that. That's why that is. There's a whole pile of stuff in this car that's, I mean, we're so used to Holden V8 Supercars, but this is, as you said, this is one-on-one.
Oh, it is, that's right. I mean, you look at the cage was specially homologated for this car, done by Parasaitot, a special fuel cell in the back, it's covered up in the back so it all complies. You know, then it was HSV, and it's got all the upgrades in it, and a 6.2 litre engine, just Motec computer, all the little bits and pieces, and you just think, wow, okay, they've put a lot of effort in.
Is this fun to drive? I mean, it looks like it from the outside. Can you tell it's a wagon when you're out there punching around?
No, you can't. Look, it's got a bit of weight to it, but it's no different to any other VE Commodore. It just handles fantastic. It's got really trick suspension on it. In 2010, they upgraded it, put a lot of supercar bits and pieces in the front suspension, in the shockers, and it's actually a really good car to drive.
What are the fans saying when they've come up and had a look? Because I'm sure there's a pile of people who probably haven't seen this thing for 15 years since it last ran at Bathurst. What's the feedback been from the faithful out there?
Most people say, how cool. That's the first thing that most people say. And, you know, and some people don't even realise it's a wagon, and they have a bit of a look and say, oh, it's a wagon. What's the story here? So it's great.
What's the future plans? Where do we get to see it again? What can you do with it? It's such a unique car that we'd love to see this out more often.
Look, we'll do super sprints as we're doing this weekend. Treat it nicely. Try and keep it as original as possible, which is the way it is now, and just maintain it and go and have fun.
Great to look back there at an interesting piece of Holden racing history. And boys, you've both got a bit of experience when it comes to proddy cars and 12 hours from back in the day, don't you?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I look back on it with fond memories.
Fair way back in the memory bank.
Yeah, but the first time I got to drive for the factory Holden was in the Holden Astra at the 12 hour. And funny story, it was losing boost, and every time we had to reset it after 3 or 4 laps, you had to turn the key off down Conrod, steering lock and all, and turn it back on to get the full boost back.
Key bang a start.
Yeah, and that was the only, we had to do that like 5 times throughout a stint. So I don't look back on that with the fondest of memories, Noons, but yeah, that's a cool car, and David Holk's a ripper fella, so good on him for being the new custodian of that car.
And we appreciate the support of City Rural Insurance Brokers who've joined us again on the Undercut. They've been on the scene since 1995, a very good year for Perkins Engineering, by the way, at Mount Panorama at Bathurst. And City Rural can help you with insurance for business, transport, trades, farming, and much, much more, even your private jet when you're going to America again. Talk to the City Rural team now. Grab a quote, jump online at cityrural.au. They are your insurance pit crew. Time now, though, boys, for the workbench. And on this show, I want to take a look at the Enduro combos, and I've done a little bit of homework, boys, and I've put who's who in 3 categories. There's our serious contenders, gold, silver, bronze. It's a bit of an Olympic feel for taking a look at the combos that will tackle the Ryco Enduro Cup. So let's have a look at who I reckon are the serious contenders. Of course, the 2 Red Bulls. That's hard not to put them in this group. Chaz Mostert back with Fabian Coulthard this year. I ummed and ahed. Do I put Ryan Wood or Jaden Ojeda in gold or silver? But I think the youthful exuberance and speed, I'm going to put them in the gold category as a contender this year for these Enduros. If we flick across the page, I've identified a couple more that I reckon in the mix. The Penrite lead car, the Monster Energy car, and the defending Bathurst winners. I think they are the 7 cars that are the favourites in terms of, if any of these cars win, we wouldn't be surprised. How do we feel about that?
Well, I think what I find interesting there is, Noonan, you've only listed 2 Chevys. With all the parity chat going on, it's a pretty Ford-dominated list you've got there. And I guess when you do look down the Chevy list, there probably isn't a kind of stellar combination with respect to what you're saying. So I don't disagree with what you put there. I think we've touched on, obviously, the 88, the 1 and the 19 car, for me, are the top 3. So you've hit the nail on the head there. I guess it's just a matter of, whether, the DJR team, for example, can give Brodie Kostecki and Hazelwood the tools they need to win these races.
There's clearly plenty going on in Ford and parity land. There's not much being said officially by teams, by Ford, but they've definitely tested some different elements and some different parts. But I'm basing this really off the combinations, the teams, if things go their way. I.e., would I not be surprised if they won? Parking the whole parity and cars and who's in what. In my silver group here, let's have a look at these guys, because these, I feel, are the cars that if I wouldn't be shocked if they're on the podium. And I've got a couple of caveats in here. Thomas Randall and James Moffat at the top of my list here. I didn't quite squeeze you into gold, James, but big question for me on Anton De Pasquale, who's having really good form lately, is Harry Jones. Well versed in Carrera Cup. Supercars rookie, though. Bit of pressure coming in to deliver for a team that's now the homologation team and having a good runner late. Yeah,
and you talk about doing double duties. Well, Harry's obviously doing Carrera Cup at both the Bend and Bathurst. So, that's going to be a big challenge for him. His first endurance campaign, driving alongside Anton De Pasquale, whose speed of late has been very impressive. So, Harry is very well credentialed in Carrera Cup, so these Gen 3 cars will be very different for him to drive. So he's got a big challenge ahead of himself, and particularly managing those double duties, because he's fighting for the championship in Carrera Cup. So his focus is still going to be on that, but also he's come out sort of publicly and sort of stated his desire to break into supercars. So equally, he's going to want to do just as good a job in the endurance races.
Just on that as well, with the way the testing rules have been with rookies and whatnot, Harry Jones has already done a full day at Tail and Bend last year in a driver evaluation with that team. And a lot of the rookies have been running around even this week doing laps. So a lot of these co-drivers are getting laps at the circuit. They're, not to say we're at a disadvantage, Moff, but we never really got those opportunities in our first couple of years to go to Sandown beforehand and
You did get
run.
to go to a few other tracks, though, with that.
We're talking
ride car back in the day.
Yeah, we're talking Super 2 there. No, I'm not talking the big game, but I think you'll know what I mean. Obviously, there's quite a lot of heavy testing restrictions these days, so these guys have been getting laps at the circuits, which otherwise wouldn't have happened. But yeah, I mean, certainly you've got to make advantage of those rules. So good on the. It's not a negative to them. It's more about how you're getting more familiarisation than you otherwise would have,
I've got a few more in my silver group. I had Kai Allen in there. I know Will Davison's had a horrible season, but he and Tony D'Alberto, that's a really good combo with a lot of experience. There's a reason why TD's been with that team now for a decade. Reynolds and Holdsworth in the mix. Craig Lowndes and Zach Bates. We saw what Zach did up at Queensland Raceway first time out. Yes, that team have got very good cars, but we saw what Cooper Murray could do last year with them. Golding and Russell, I mean, tough year for Premier, but I'm not counting them out of the mix in the Enduros. Jared Hughes, rookie, he's got an opportunity with Jack LeBrock and Andre Heimgartner and Declan Fraser. It's been a tough run for BJR in endurance races for quite some years. So if they're on a podium, they have all done a really good job. I've got another group of bronze. Now, I'd just about say that a top 10 is a win. And there's a couple of cars here that have been running at the front, finish on podiums and race wins. But quite frankly, the wheels have fallen off Matt Stone Racing. It seems internally of late. They've just had no pace. They've had no real results to speak of. I mean, they won a race. They were on podiums at the start of the year. It's amazing how the wheels have fallen off here. I've got them in this group with Bryce Fullwood and Brad Vaughan, Nash Morris debuting alongside Richie Stanaway and James and Jack, although Blanchard Racing Team have made good strides in the last part of this championship. Enduro's kind of a whole other thing. So are we offended by anything that I've done here or who I've put where or how? Because there's one more screen to come with essentially the young wildcards from Tickford, Cam Crick and Aaron Seaton, the second Erebus car, the second Blanchard car, Jackson Evans, Jack Smith, who returns, and Macca Jones and Jordan Boyce. A top 10 for any of those guys, I reckon, is like a win in the Enduros for them. Yeah,
I think, you touched on it with Matt Stone Racing. Like, their speed of late has sort of seemed to have gone. Disappearing.
There's clearly tension within that.
From a combination point of view, that Percat Slade combination for me is, wouldn't be surprising to see them on the podium. Very, very strong combination. Nick's obviously hugely experienced, and Tim Slade is fresh out of, this is his first year out of being full-time back into the co-driver role. So very, very solid co-driver Slade will be. So if their car is fast, there's no reason why they won't be well inside the top 10, in my opinion.
Yeah, and further to Moff's point, I think if you had done that list at the start of the year, you'd have Percat and Slade would have been right at the top.
Had them at top of silver.
Correct. And, Nick's a contender at Bathurst. If you look at that last section of the race, who do you want in your car that's going to be elbows out and fast? Nick's always proven that he can be there or thereabouts, and Slade is one of the pick of the co-drivers, given that he's just come out of the main game. And I think the genuine roughie for me is probably that Lee Holdsworth Reynolds car. Those guys.
Agreed. Yep, strong combination.
Yep. Speed's there, experience is there, and hasn't been a lot of chat about them, but certainly the car and team performance is on the rise.
And Reynolds is one of those guys that really can sort of lift at Bathurst as well, and we know what Lee did a couple of years ago in that Walkinshaw Andretti United rocket ship they had in 2021. So,
and we know with Dave, if he likes a track, he goes good. If he doesn't like a track, he generally doesn't go.
Does he like the bend? Or
I'm not sure. We're about to find out, though.
Should have asked him.
This weekend we should have asked him, but it's always an interesting mix. Which combos will shine? Which ones will bomb? We can't wait to find out in the Ryco Enduro Cup.
I could go a Mose, go a Mose, go a Mose, go a Mose. You do the high bit. Go a Mose, go a Mose, go a Mose, go a Mose. What's the price, Cat?
$3.
Get some.
Go a Mose.
Only
$3, yeah.
Go a Mose. Go a Mose mouth-watering hot dog, $3 anytime.
What?
At OTR.
It's time for us to delve into our top 5 delivered by Shell OTR. Shell and OTR have come together to deliver premium fuel and convenience to Australians nationwide. Jump online to check out the details. I've dragged out some Ute stuff, boys. My top 5. Let's start at 5. I can't explain who's involved in this one because everyone was involved in this one. This is chaos.
The good old days of the V8 Utes, Noons. This is awesome. One of the crowd favourites, and then the track is jammed, as they would say in the classics. Look at that.
Out front, the Ryco Filters Commodore. That's Jared McLeod getting home for a win while the rest of them were stuck down at turn, whatever number that is. So there's always chaos in Utes. You put concrete walls up and it gets a little bit more chaotic. This is Adam Marjoram and Elliot Barber at Townsville in 2013. Arriving at turn 2 backwards, not a good look.
Oh, does he get him? Oh, I thought he was going to get him back on the way through.
The best part is here, it goes on up the hill and they're still into it.
Oh, so he's still ahead of him, and then...
Oh!
Right, so he's still trying to finish him off. He didn't finish him off at turn 1, and surely there's going to be a return serve here. No? That's all a bit.
If nothing else, they've definitely got flat-spotted tyres.
Plenty of drama. Oh. This one in Adelaide, this was wild. Jeff Fane and Bruce Oaklands. Jeff Fane was banned by CAMS for the rest of the year for this incident. So Oaklands makes the dive up the inside.
Fair play.
On the curb, little rub. That wasn't too bad. I've seen far worse in Utes, but
Yeah.
this was bad.
Yeah, that was pretty ordinary. And I do look at the wall.
Have a look at the marshals
The
here.
officials were so lucky there not to be at the join.
I remember them handing down a decent penalty for that. So it should, like at this point here, there was nothing, he didn't need to serve him back, and then
The
whooshka.
old interlocked wheels.
Yep.
Yeah.
That concrete block, they are heavy blocks, so you've got to hit them pretty hard to be able to move those. It went on.
Did he bring back the biff?
No biff, just a bit of a in the
Bit of
door.
a character reference, you reckon?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good old
there we go,
slam,
mate.
right in front of the grandstand. Speaking of slams, this is Eastern Creek 2005. This is George Elliott and Brendan Tucker, and it goes for a while, fair to say, boys.
That went for 300 metres.
To get turned around down the front straight at then Eastern Creek is pretty impressive. Oh, this is Schmacko's on board. I remember Schmacko.
Yeah. Pop this. Oh, that's tight.
2005 Noons, I would have been in this race.
You were
Yep.
in front of it, behind it, somewhere, probably in
I
front of
think
it.
I was in front of this one, but who knows? Could have been wobbling around the back.
Just clipped him on the
What
way
about
through
old
there.
mate in the back there? Got them
locked
all
up.
skidded
Did a
up,
good job.
locked up.
Managed to
Who's
avoid.
that? He's got
Oi.
both locked.
Both fronts are locked.
This one to round us out from Sandown 2011, Greg Willis and Brendan Cook. Can you guess what happens next?
Oh, payback.
Oh, under the Jim
Got him.
Bridge. Yep.
Yeah, this was certainly not for the faint-hearted, this Utes racing.
And this is just 5. I could have picked 55 moments to bring onto the undercut today. Exit stage left, Brendan Cook, car 25, the Commodore, clangs into the guardrail. And that is our top 5 delivered by Shell OTR. It's time to pull the plug on this episode of the Undercut with some plugs. We're here to plug some stuff. That's what we do. Gents, earlier in the show, great to see that Holden Sport Wagon back on track at the Winton Festival of Speed among a range of classic V8 supercars and a whole heap of other really cool stuff. Getting them out of garages is great and getting right among it. So next up for the historic set is Historic Sandown. That's going to be November 7 to 9 in Melbourne. It's the weekend before the supercar event at Sandown. And one of the early entries that's already been announced, down to drive a replica of the old Alan Moffat Federation Falcon, James, at his Tabitha Ambrose. And at Winton, she got a chance to drive this car, the four-door Warren Cullen Group C Tirana. Any old school Group C or A cars we can twist you up and have a run in?
Oh, there'd be plenty Noons actually, but that Group C Federation car that you're talking about, Noons, that was I reckon, one of the better looking cars that Dad had in terms of its livery. And I think a couple of years ago it was Penrite Racing sort of did a replica livery of that at the 500, which looked pretty sharp. So good looking race car, but of the sort of Group C era, I'd love to have a go of one of the old RX-7
I thought you were going to say
Mazdas.
that, yep.
So that'd tick a box for me for sure.
It would. I'll tell you what, will also tick a box if you're a fan of the Repco Bathurst 1000. The official program is about to hit the streets. It's out next week. You can order it online now from the V8 Sleuth Superstore. 144 pages with all the info that you need to keep you informed and entertained during race week. There's plenty of features, profiles and stats on all the drivers. It's available now to order through the V8 Sleuth Superstore. Or this year, around the country, it's back in newsagents, gents, as well, for those who are on the newsstands. And by the way, people have been asking too about our V8 Sleuth Open Night, National Motor Racing Museum. Thursday of Great Race Week with Paul Morris and Mark Larkham. It's sold out, would you believe, in a day and a half. We have no more tickets, no more seats. It promises to be a really great night. Want to give a plug too for the Diecast Model Expo. That's coming up in Caroline Springs, September 19 to 21. Dave Reynolds, Matt Payne, John Bow. Mel Price will be there. They're actually going to have the Castrol Cougars car, Jack, produced as a model car to add to the collection.
Yeah, that was a good-looking car. Do you know which version, the first year or the second year?
Second year,
Second year. 1998
version.
Yeah, they were good-looking cars, and the girls did a great job, so that's cool. I have to put my order in for one of those.
Well, the only place you can get it is at the Diecast Model Expo, so you've got to head along and make sure you get one of those. And of course, we're on the countdown, as we have been on the Undercut right throughout this show, to the great race, the Repco Bathurst 1000. Don't forget, for free to our viewers, The 7 Network is where you can catch it across the 3 days on 7, 7 Mate and 7 Plus as well. So plenty of coverage, whether you pay TV, free-to-air. Everyone whinges about free-to-air, but for Bathurst, you have got a lot of free-to-air to keep you very much entertained. Gents, we're out of time here on The Undercut. Thanks so much for joining me again. Go well at the bend and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Noons.
Yep, thanks, Noons.
Good to have them with us. Jack Perkins and James Moffat on The Undercut this week. We will see you at the bend for the AirTouch 500 at Shell V8 Motorsport Park. It's a big time of the year. There's 5 big rounds to go. The championship will be on the line in the finals, but for right now, it's all about the 500. We'll see you in South Australia and next time on The Undercut.